The Indianapolis Colts have built a wall, and the rest of the NFL is going to pay for it. I almost didn't believe that we would ever get to see the best version of Andrew Luck, what with Indy's offensive line problems that persisted for years until Luck was ultimately knocked out for all of 2017. But now in 2018, 7 full seasons into Luck's career, he finally has a supporting cast around him that can unleash all of that immense potential. Over the last 3 games, now that the offense is starting to finally get healthier than they were to begin the season, the Colts have won all 3 of those games and are among the leaders in the NFL in virtually every offensive category that matters. In points per game, they are 3rd at 36, they're tied for 5th in red zone trips per game and 6th in yards per game, and they're also 4th in yards per play and 3rd in third down conversion percentage. In terms of just pure rushing trends, they are 2nd in the NFL over their last 3 games with 174 rushing yards per game. They're also tied for 3rd in the league at 5.2 yards per carry, and they're 5th in rushing first downs per game. On the passing front, Andrew Luck is 6th in completion percentage over his last 3 games, 7th in yards per attempt, 1st in touchdowns per game, and 1st in sacks taken per game at 0. This offense has been brutally efficient and perfectly balanced, as all things should be, but that last stat about sacks taken is really the one that I want to focus on the most. I think that out of all of these numbers, the fact that Andrew Luck is not getting hit like he used to get hit is the real crowning achievement of the Colts offense this year. Frank Reich has done a masterful job of protecting his quarterback, not just with investment into the offensive line with draft assets, but with scheme and offensive philosophy overall. For starters, now that Marlon Mack, Ryan Kelly, and Anthony Costanzo are all healthy for once, Reich has truly committed to the run game to take pressure off of Luck, and he's been doing so in a lot of very creative and tricky ways to give his running backs as many gigantic lanes as possible. For example, I'm sure most of you have already seen this play from rookie left guard Quenton Nelson by now, where he pulls around and absolutely murders Barry Church in cold blood. It's a fantastic play and really shows off Nelson's incredible power that I highlighted on this channel before he was even drafted, but what's really interesting to me is how this play is designed by Reich. It's 2nd and 4, and the Jags have dropped Church down into the box so that they now outnumber the Colts 7 against 6. This is not necessarily a favorable run look for Indianapolis when you look at those numbers, but because of how Indy is lined up, they actually have a very sneaky and crafty advantage when the play is executed. Luck is in the shotgun here with Mack flanking to his right, which is the strong side of the formation, by the way. And remember, the strong side is typically whatever side the tight end is lined up on, so keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this play. Now, because Mack is flanked to Luck's right, the defense is expecting any potential rushing attempt to go to Luck's left, because usually out of this kind of formation, you will see a ton of inside zone to the weak side, and a lot of RPOs as well that play off of that inside zone run. Ironically enough, I did an episode on that exact concept last season when I broke down Reich's offense in Philly right before the Super Bowl, but we can get into more of those schematic similarities at another time. If I roll this play slightly forward, you can see why the defense is expecting an inside zone run to the weak side, because most of the time out of the shotgun, the mesh point and the mechanics of the handoff is going to be going back across the quarterback's body. So again, most of the time, wherever the running back is going to be lined up in shotgun formation, the run is going to go the other way. That's just how those handoffs normally work. And you can see that the Jags front 7 is slanting towards Luck's left because they expect the handoff to operate as any other normal shotgun handoff would. They are really trying to shoot those gaps and penetrate as quickly as possible to disrupt this play because penetration is the best way to shut down a weak side inside zone run. However, this is not an inside zone run to the weak side, it's a counterplay to the strong side. As this defensive front is slanting to the weak side of the offensive formation, that is just making it easier for the Colts offensive line to then pin them to that weak side, while both of the guards pull around to the strong side and decapitate some very unlucky Jaguars DBs. Barry Church, God rest his soul, really did try his best here, but because of how the counter was designed to fool him, he just could not recover and get across Nelson's face in time to force a cutback from Mack into the unblocked defender, which was Telvin Smith here, and as a result, Mack got a very easy 7-yard gain and a first down. This was just one of many examples I found of well-designed or well-executed running plays over the last month of the season that make me think that this trend of Indy being able to run the ball will not be a short-lived one. It's not just cheeky play calls that are getting all of this production, and it's not just the offensive line flat out whooping ass up and down the line of scrimmage, it's both. It's a fantastic confluence of scheme and talent, and I think now that they're all fully healthy, this Colts run game is a threat to pile up numbers on basically anybody they want to. But the Indianapolis offensive line isn't just a one-trick pony that can only do one thing well and nothing else. And yes, I'm looking at you, Green Bay. The Colts can pass protect just as effectively as they can run block, and that upgrade in pass protection is the single biggest reason for Andrew Luck not just looking like his old self again, but looking better than his old self ever was. Quenton Nelson in particular has been a revelation because his incredible natural power has helped to give Luck the one thing that he's never really had before in Indianapolis: pocket integrity. I have always been of the belief that interior pass protection is more important than exterior pass protection because if you have a strong interior, it helps to better maintain the integrity of the front of the pocket. The more sturdy the front of the pocket and the less ground they lose against, say, a bull rush or an interior stunt, the more room it gives your quarterback to then step up away from edge pressure and take away those finishing angles that pass rushers take as they round the corner outside. So really, the better your center and guards play, the easier it is for your offensive tackles to not get exposed. And when I say that, don't take it to mean that the Colts tandem of Costanza and Braden Smith are necessarily bad, but if they do have a bad day, the fact that Luck has a ton of room to step up into that well-maintained pocket means that their bad days out on the edges against premier pass rushers will not ruin the whole offense. That, to me, is the main value of drafting a guy like Quenton Nelson, because his ability to anchor and re-anchor over and over again to maintain that pocket integrity indirectly makes his offensive tackles better as well. And speaking of that anchor, I want to talk a little bit about the technique that Nelson uses to be so dominant against opposing power moves that try to collapse that pocket, because it does go well beyond just being a gigantic and extremely strong human being. There's actually a fair bit of mechanics and footwork involved in there as well, believe it or not. Take this play against the Jets from Week 6 as an example. Nelson is taking on this bull rush from Jeremiah Atachu, who's coming at him from basically a 4-yard running start. That is a lot of force to take on and anchor against, and Nelson knows that he is probably going to have to lose a little bit of ground on the initial contact so that he can regather himself and drop anchor a second time deeper in the pocket. If he cannot re-anchor himself a second time after that first effort inevitably gets shoved backwards, then Luck is going to be in for a really bad time. So pay close attention to how Nelson takes on this bull rush, because it's a very interesting technical detail that I think a lot of young offensive linemen can learn from. He picks up that right foot ever so slightly as Atachu makes initial contact, and what that does is help prevent himself from having his center of gravity get thrown back over his heels, which would compromise his balance and likely result in him getting tossed onto his back. Since that right foot is in the air as he absorbs the rush, that contact will naturally throw that foot backwards to maintain balance, and that's why he wants to have that foot off the ground and ready to step back on contact, because he's going to need that foot shooting backwards immediately. He cannot wait to step back after contact is made, because by that point his center of gravity might already be compromised. As long as he always has at least one foot behind his center of gravity, he can maintain balance and slow this rush down. So essentially he's taking that first step backwards early, before or as contact is made, to make sure that he is balanced at all times. If he took that first step late, then he would get thrown back on his heels with a huge leverage disadvantage and no balance to keep himself upright. Now, after that first step back on contact, because that right foot was already slightly behind him, that gave Nelson almost like a slight launching point to stay upright as his body was jolted backwards from the rush, and because he was able to stay upright and balanced without just immediately crumpling backwards, as ugly as this might look, you can see how he was able to essentially hop backwards with both feet again, reset his base, reset his hands back inside the chest of Atachu, and ultimately re-anchor against this rush. Luck has a nice clean pocket, he was never in any danger of getting forced backwards into Jamal Adams rushing off the edge, and he completes this ball to Eric Ebron for 19 yards. This was fantastic technique by Nelson to complement his already impressive power. He knew he was going to get rocked a bit by this initial contact, so he dropped that foot early, gave himself that little bit of extra balance he needed to survive the rush without crumbling over, and then reset himself to re-anchor and win the rep. That's what it looks like to be a future All-Pro at guard. That's the kind of pocket integrity you expect from an All-Pro guard. If the front of your pocket is strong, you can get away with a lot of really bad reps from your offensive tackles. And if you ask any quarterback in the NFL, I guarantee you that they would all say that they would rather have a pair of all-pro guards and really bad tackles than a pair of all-pro tackles and really bad guards. I don't care what system you're running, pocket integrity is crucial to the success of any passing game. If your quarterback has no room to step up and sit within that pocket, he is toast. Quenton Nelson, and of course also Mark Glowinski and Ryan Kelly, have all given Luck that pocket integrity that he's been dreaming of since he first came into the league, and as a result he's been burning defenses to the ground on a weekly basis. The man hasn't been sacked in 4 weeks, and he's on pace to be sacked only 18 times all season long. That is far, far below any number he has ever endured in the past. In fact, when you look at some other legendary quarterbacks around the league, the specialness of that 18 sack pace is really put into perspective. Peyton Manning, who was notoriously the hardest quarterback to sack ever, averaged taking only 17.7 sacks a year during his 13 seasons as a Colt. In Drew Brees' 12 years in New Orleans, he has averaged 23.8 sacks per year, and in Tom Brady's 15 full seasons in New England, he has averaged taking 29.1 sacks per year. So really you could say that maybe for the first time in many years, that lightning quick, unbelievably frustrating to stop Colts offense from the mid-2000s has finally made its return. Frank Reich's version of it has its own bells and whistles and maybe a few stylistic differences, sure, but just looking at the pure numbers and looking at the faces of frustrated pass rushers around the league, that prime Colts offense is back. Their aggressiveness is back, their run game is back, their offensive line is back, and their MVP caliber leader is back. I still have zero confidence in their ability to stop anyone on defense, but hell, it's not like that's any different than their golden era with Peyton anyway. I suppose my overall point though is this: the Colts are finally healthy, and because of that, they finally have a team that can win in ways other than just throwing a ton of deep balls and hoping their quarterback doesn't die in the process. This young offensive line has helped to infuse a new identity into this team, while also amplifying their old identity in ways that we never even thought possible. The Colts are 2 games back in the AFC South, yes, but honestly right now I consider them to be the most sneaky, dangerous team in the division, and that goes double if they manage to beat an also very dangerous Titans team this week. If they do beat Tennessee, and they do get within striking range of not just a wild card spot, but an actual division title, look out, because you do not want to face this team in the playoffs. I don't care what their record is by the end of the season. I absolutely, unequivocally, 100% do not want to play against that quarterback with that offensive line and that running game in January. Maybe it's just because I'm a Texans fan and I've already been scarred for life by that godforsaken franchise, but I'm telling you, look out for the Colts. They may be below 500 now, but they will not be for long. That wall is built, and one way or another, they're gonna make all of us pay for it. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode, again brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie, who have a wonderful promotion going on this coming week for Thanksgiving NFL action. It's called Turkey Day Free Play, and with that free play, you can bet on the spread for either the Bears or the Lions in that first day game on Thanksgiving for free. If your chosen spread wins, you win as if it was a normal bet, you get the money. If it loses, though, MyBookie will give you your bet back on any wager of up to $250. So if you ever wanted to dip your toe into the waters of sports betting, this is a good way to do it because you literally cannot lose. You don't even need a promo code to do it, though of course if you do enter promo code Brett when you sign up and deposit, you still do get that really nice 50% sign up bonus, so that's just kind of an added benefit. But yeah, if you want to bet on the NFL for free on Thanksgiving, check out MyBookie at the link in the description below. They are an awesome sports book. And as for me, I'll be back next week with a bunch more content, hopefully before Thanksgiving, so I'm going to get started on that, and until then, later.